RotoGrinders! Welcome to the DFS pregame show. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka blenderhd, blenderhd on Twitter. You can follow me there. And this is the morning show, the 11 a.m. Eastern show, where it simulates what I do in my normal day. I wake up a little bit later than most, right? I get up around 11 in the morning. I look through results DB. I study the slate yesterday. See what top players did strategy-wise, compare with what I considered. Look through some lineups. Look at the current slate for today. We got a 3-game slate today. Yesterday at 11 in the morning, we thought we were going to play what? We're going to play tons of Trailblazers and Grizzlies, and then that game got canceled, right? So, even now, even with 3 games on the slate, we could look a little bit about what's going on today's slate. But we're primarily talking about DFS strategy here on this show. So if you have a question, a comment, anything, I like my YouTube people. The people in the YouTube chat, Dustin Ho, Card Fan, Meat Plow, Mr. Plow's back. Or Meat. Should I call him Meat or Mr. Plow? I don't know. Andrew Palmer, Duck Fan 1981, Shane Newman, Uzi Azizov, Matt Mears. I see you all in chat. So post your questions there. I will scroll back from time to time, pick out some questions to talk about. But as always, I got the regular apple juice back today. So no apple mango or the mango apple. It's really mango juice. But this is the regular stuff. This is the good stuff. The Minute Maid, the brand name apple juice. Does it really matter? Probably doesn't. So in order to keep this cold throughout the show, hit that thumbs up button. Give me that thumbs. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live on this channel. But yesterday was it was something, all right. I mean, we went into the day thinking, okay, I'm going to play Xavier Tillman because Jonas Valanciunas is out. Clark, John Morant was underpriced, and then Lillard because CJ McCollum's out, and you're like, oh, okay, half my lineup's going to be in this late Portland Memphis game, and then Memphis has to go through some contact tracing, and they wipe that off the slate. So instead of a 10-game slate, it's a 9-game slate. So now there's a rush to who the hell is going to be value today. And then we see that Tyler Hero was out. So it's like, okay, we get some Kendrick Nunn. Okay, 4,000 Kendrick Nunn. And then we look and we see Reddish was out and Hunter was out, which on FanDuel turned Kevin Huerter into a value play. Maybe not on DraftKings. DraftKings, Kevin Huerter was 9,500. So you probably still weren't playing him. But then who was going to get those minutes? Was it going to be Solomon Hill? Was it going to be Brandon Goodwin? Well, it turned out it was Solomon Hill. He didn't really do much with it, but he got 30-something minutes, and Brandon Goodwin only played 11. But Brandon Goodwin was 3 times as much owned. So the minutes didn't go in that direction, so the Goodwin value kind of dudded there. But it was a race for value. The Miami guys, Dragic, Nunn. Then we had the Minnesota guys. They dudded. Anthony Edwards, right? He went 3 for 14 from the floor. He missed 3 different layups. And then Jared Vanderbilt didn't have that great of a game either. He ended up with 10, 12 points, something like that. So that didn't work out. And then we had obviously Clint Capella went nuts. And that game went to overtime. And then we had the Brooklyn-Cleveland game go to overtime, and Colin Sexton just scored he scored 30 DraftKings points in the span of what? Double overtime? They played double overtime right there. So very, very variance-driven slate when games go to overtime, are you supposed to be able to predict that? Games get blown out. Are you supposed to be able to predict that? I don't know. But yesterday, if you went off the board, you probably did well in large field GPPs. We see our own Squirrel Patrol, John Breslin. First place. He's on a heater in the excellent 8s, 72,000 entries. First place we were talking about this in the RG Discord, with a fairly unconventional type of lineup. I'm going to take a look at his exposures because I don't even know. That he played 3 Cleveland guys, and the Brooklyn guy was Jeff Green on the run back, and none of the Brooklyn studs. But the Brooklyn studs with Kyrie Irving back, I think they're all overpriced. I mean, obviously Durant got there, but I mean, when you have a double overtime game, you're going to get there. But with Kyrie at 9,000 and Durant at 10,700 and Harden at 10,500, those prices together, I don't think they get enough usage individually to warrant those price tags. I think they're going to end up coming down. I think we're going to end up seeing like Kyrie at like 7,800, Durant at 95, Harden at 92, like somewhere in that range. And then it would make more sense. So I can understand saying, well, the Cleveland guys, maybe that game goes over. But, the Brooklyn guys, all the value gets spread out, right? All the studs end up with, 48 to 52 points. They're unnecessary in the lineup, but the Cleveland guys get there. Could be. Osman, Nance, Sexton. You play all three together. It's not a lineup I would have made. I can tell you that. It's not a lineup I would have made, but it got there. I mean, we could take a look at Nom Saying. So you got Taurean Prince in there from Cleveland, but then none of that game. Like, you didn't need it, right? You needed Kendrick Nunn pretty much at 38% ownership. You needed Clint Capella at 25% ownership with 76 points. Doug McDermott, I mean, you didn't need him, but it would have been nice. Ayton, 6%, 62 points. You didn't need him. I mean, Squirrel Patrol didn't have Ayton. Still got there. Let's look at Phoenix over here. So you needed Ayton, Capella. If you had Porzingis, that was fine. If you had Leonard, that was fine. You needed none. So a lot of different types of lineups. As long as you had the key pieces, you could have gotten there. Tinky Tyler, right? Sexton at 2%. Solomon Hill, all he needed was 17 points in this type of lineup. Still got there. And Corfield, NC Orfield. You got Van Vliet, Jeremy Grant, Capella, Solomon Hill, DeAndre Ayton, none. Let's go to Phoenix over here. Jordan McLaughlin, 1%, just out of nothing, right? James Harden. All you needed was the raw points. But look at these ownership percentages. I mean, when you have like Goodwin busting, when you have Anthony Edwards busting, I mean, if we take a look at ownership here in the excellent eights, I mean, take a look at the highest owned players. Like Vooch got there, but was unnecessary. None you needed. At that ownership, you're going to need him. Dragic, you didn't need. I mean, he got points, but he didn't. Cameron Johnson, you didn't need him, right? 22 points, 30% owned. Jeremy Grant, you really didn't need. Capella, you needed. Luka, you didn't need. But, I mean, he got raw points. But, like Edwards at 18%, 7.5, dud, right? Brandon Goodwood, 14%, 0 points. Vanderbilt, 15%, 13 points. Draymond was 17%, 20 points. So, like, as long as you didn't have these duds in your lineup and you got none, and then you made up points with Capella, none, something like that. I mean, there were multiple possibilities. Trae Young put up 66 at 9%. We take a look here. Steph Curry put up 51 at 10%. Ayton at low ownership. Scroll down here. Kawhi Leonard at 4%. Paul George at 3% for raw points. I mean, you look down here. I mean, obviously Colin Sexton, but he went nuts. Kyrie Irving. I mean, like all of them in that game. And when he goes double overtime, that's what's going to happen. I mean, De'Aaron Fox at 1%. I mean, I'm just looking through all of this. I mean, look at Jared Allen. He went nuts on his new team because it seems like they're splitting time more with Drummond now. So Drummond's price is going to have to go down if Drummond's only going to play like 28 minutes. Like he can't be 9K anymore. But there were multiple paths to get there. But I want to take a look at Squirrel Patrols. Like, see this is what I mean about strategies. Okay, we're going to take a look. This is Squirrel Patrol's 150 build. I'm not comparing it to anyone else. I'm just comparing it to this. Okay, his winning lineup had those Cleveland guys, Sexton, Nance, and Osman. We go look here. We're going to look for Sexton, Nance, and Osman. Okay? Sexton. Barely any, like in 2% of lineups, 2.6%. So that's 4 lineups, right? Sexton. Nance. Same thing. Sexton, Nance, and Osman. Not even. 0.67. which means 1%, which means it was in that one line. That was the only lineup that Osman appeared in. I'm going to assume based on this, Osman in one lineup, Nance in another 4 lineups or so, and Sexton in another 4 lineups or so, that his overall 150 build strategy was to jam in these guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in some capacity in general, and then kind of like game stack. I would have to. I mean, that's the only way that you would get a lineup where you get 3 Cleveland guys and 1 Brooklyn guy. Like, let's take a look at Jeff Green. Jeff Green, yeah, barely, like 3 lineups. 2 lineups? Yeah, 2 lineups. Just in that. And so the fact that there's so little Cleveland, those 3 Cleveland guys and Jeff Green, I have to assume that it was built, these were built based on a game stack type of philosophy in that lineup. I have to assume. It makes sense. It's not something you have to do, but I mean that this is what Wade tried to build his 150 build. Like Goran Dragic was in 96% of his lineups. And he was still in the winning lineup, right? Dragic, Capella, Vus, none. So take a look at this. Dragic, Capella, Vooch, none. Right, his core. His Luka lineups didn't get there. Oubre would have been fine, but I mean, like, there you go. It's not a matter. He didn't choose that game. I think he was just, like he said, Shake Milton here. So I'm assuming they were like 3 lineups that stacked, some type of Philadelphia, Boston. Right? Are we going to get Embiid here? Is Embiid in this pool? Yeah, 4% of lineups. Embiid, how about was Smart? Yeah, 1%. Smart on Boston. Who else is on Boston? Tice. Did he have any Tice? No. Did he have any Kemba? No. Kemba was on a minutes restriction. I mean, he did well in his first rotation, but that's what it looks like. But this is what you have to do. This is why I go to Results DB. We started talking in the RG Discord, which is part of our premium product. I'm always in there. I'm always in there discussing strategy. Sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month and join the Discord. I'm in there all the time. And that's what we were talking about last night. People were like, how do you get to that lineup? How do you get to a lineup with that? The main thing was, how do you get to this lineup that has no Brooklyn studs in it? That I understand. Because you could stack that game and think, and the three Brooklyn studs did not project well yesterday because for their usage together, all 3 of them, they're overpriced. Like when it's just 2 of them, yeah, play them all you want at those prices. But the 3 of them, no. That doesn't mean the game can't go nuts. So he took Jeff Green and the 3 Cleveland guys, and he probably built a group around him. You could tweet at him at Squirrel Patrol or whatever, DK, whatever, whatever is that, J_Brezel or whatever on Twitter. Ask him. But that's what it seems like to me. I could just tell from his exposures of what types of lineups he was building. Right? It's not like he had Sexton at 20% and then Nance and 4%. Like it's such little exposure that these lineups were built purposely. Of like, I'm gonna just play it like a kind of core group of players and then build game stacks around it. So you probably have Oladipo, Tate, with Houston, Phoenix game. So like he had Paul 6%. Do you have any Booker? No, Booker, he was overpriced. Have any Ayton? 2% Ayton. So that's what it seems like. Like Dejounte Murray in that game, just seems like built the core and then kind of tried to fit in 2+1s, 3+1s, like little game stacks in that. And maybe on today's slate he doesn't do that. Maybe on Friday's slate he doesn't do that. Just on this slate, maybe this is what he chose to do. A different sharp player may choose differently. We're gonna take a look at Tinky Tyler. And it's like, oh yeah, 46% Brandon Goodwin. So a little bit more spread out. Still had plenty of none, like Neil Corfield. It still had plenty. Dragic, Hill, right? But I mean, it's a little bit flatter in these ranges. So much more diverse lineup set. But when you see these types of things where it's like, look, like basically McDermott up was like the core. And then just like, how do I pair guys together? I mean, look, Grant Williams even 8% Grant Williams put up 7 because he was probably playing him in Embiid lineups, right? I could probably go through and see that. You download the CSV, you go through results DB, you could look at the individual lineups. So this is what I mean by looking through results DB. And question like, how did he get there? Well, just do a little research and you can. Results DB is free. RotoGrinders.com/resultsDB. Go look it up. And you can always look at my bankroll tracker for cash games. I did well enough last night. Mostly carried by FanDuel, right? So I made a little on Yahoo, made a good amount on FanDuel, lost a little on Draftkings, but still overall, extra $600 into the cash game. Right, we're up to 7,500. It's been about a month, so 7,500 in a month, that's pretty good, right? So you can follow this tracker.theoryofdfs.com. But yeah, if this is what you should be doing in results DB. Looking through, seeing how do they come across these lineups? Does it make it right? No. Maybe it's just something that you should think of more. Oh, maybe I should maybe I should be doing that. If you're playing a 20 max, maybe on certain days you go, maybe let's see if I could grab like 3 or 4 guys as my core, and then build like, if it's a 9-game slate, like just build a little game stack of like every other game in 20 lineups. And maybe that's worth doing. Maybe it's not. But at least it gives you an idea of like, okay, that this is an approach that I can take. Can I build good lineups doing this? Because this lineup that he won with had to project poorly. I can tell you that. It had to. I mean, none projected well. Capella projected well. Vooch projected well. Okay, I get it. Dragic projected well. But Osman on DraftKings, not so much. Nance, no. Sexton, no. Green, it's 4,300. I mean, I guess it probably didn't project awful, but it didn't project well. But look at how much leverage you get by this lineup. Like all the own guys, none, 38%. Capella, 25%. Dragic, 34. Vooch, 41. You need to find leverage now in this size field. So you need to find leverage. You have absurd chalk in your lineup. So even though Osman, Nance, Sexton plus Green doesn't project, this lineup probably projects 15 below, or more maybe, 15 below the top median. But look, you're making it up, and look how low owned this is. And it's correlated to some extent, right? A little negative correlation, because obviously these guys can't like share the same shots. But if this game goes to double overtime, well, there you go. There's a game stack. But you're doing it. If these ownerships was higher, this was 10% each, then it wouldn't even provide you enough leverage. You'd be giving up 15 points and not getting it enough. But at this ownership, if you want to take a shot, this is what I mean by you can't use a specific number. So many people ask me, like, how much projection are you willing to sacrifice for X amount of leverage? Like, well, it depends. Depends on the lineup, and it depends on the contest. Depends on the context of the slate. Score Patrol already has the top values in his lineup. So, like, the only way to get different is by, in this size contest, 72,000 entries, is to dip down. Say, where's the most amount of leverage I could get while still playing like the stone chalk in some of these positions? Well, there you go. This is one way of doing it. So he was willing to sacrifice a lot of projection in order to get it. And it worked out. 99% of the time, it doesn't. Like, understand, 99% of the time, this lineup doesn't work. This lineup comes up at the bottom. But his strategy of like, well, I'm just going to plug in my core and go, these types of 3+1s or whatever, I'm just going to create them for every game. Right? That's what he's doing in his 150 lineup set. He doesn't care that some of these lineups end up at the bottom. Just wants one that ends up at the top. So if you have any questions, I mean, I don't want to speak for Squirrel Patrol, but that's what it looks like. I've studied enough 150 max builds to know what these things look like. So that's why, like, I didn't even research this before. This is literally the first time I'm even looking at it. All I know is that yesterday we were talking in the Discord. I'm like, let me figure this out. And this is what I look at. Hit the thumbs up button. Keep the apple juice cold. Let me check. Pretty good. Let's see. Let's go through the YouTube chat. As always, if you listen on the podcast later, rate and review it in iTunes. And if I'm not answering questions that you want answered, either show up live or you can email me. Email me questions@theoryofdfs.com. So I know some people are like, oh, well, I gotta work in the morning. I can't go on YouTube. My boss is looking over my shoulder, right? So I can never be there live, but I still have a question. But you can send them in. I answer them in email even, right? It doesn't even have to be on the show. Let's see. Going through Jacob Calloway. How do you increase the relative value of your lineups without using a blunt tool like a group to include 1 to 2 of your favorite relative value plays? So basically leverage plays. How do you increase the relative value of your lineups without using a blunt tool to include 1 to 2? You use it through exposures. You could do that in a large build using exposures, meaning that you're getting more exposure. So instead of grouping it, you just say, oh, well, I want this in 40% of my lineups. I want this guy in 40% of my lineups, 30% or whatever. In technicality, you'd rather have correlation boosts. Like that would help. We don't have that in lineup HQ, but that would help to some extent. But it depends. Like your hand, use lineup HQ like your hand building. So if I knew, like yesterday, small forward was awful. Right, small forward, power forward, like was quite bad yesterday. That's why you had the Solomon Hills in lineups. That's why you had Jared Vanderbilt and Anthony Edwards and guys like that. Right, if we take a look at the small forward position here, let's take a look. Let's get rid of that. Let's take a look at small forward, right, and power forward, whatever. I mean, take a look. Look at Cameron Johnson was the chalk. That's how bad it was. Jeremy Grant, if you paid up, played Jeremy Grant. Maybe he played Oubre in the mid-range. A little cheaper was McDermott. But look at how bad the forward position was. Even if you paid up, you got Sabonis, Porzingis, Jaylen Brown, I guess. But it's like if you're going to get different here, it's like if you're going to pay up elsewhere, you're going to have to play some type of chalk value guy. Anthony Edwards, you're going to have to play one of these guys. And if you pay up, you're probably playing Jeremy Grant. He projected the best out of the small forward spot. So then what the hell do you do? I played some lineups with Aaron Gordon in it instead of Vooch. Right? I played some Eric Gordon. Okay, what's wrong with that? But then I got to plug in Solomon Hill and hope for the best. It was awful. But if you want to leverage lineup constructions and say, like, I'm going to play a bunch of Blake Griffin, right? Blake Griffin would be like leverage off of Jeremy Grant in a mid-price range, so you're still not going all the way down. So let's say Blake Griffin. I'm not saying he did well or anything. And he's going to end up being like 4% owned. And you want to build lineups with him, then build lineups with him. And try to build, and then you could play none in that lineup. You could play Vooch in that lineup. You can play because Blake Griffin ended up being about 3 to 4% owned. And then in lineup HQ, if you want more of those lineups, increase Blake Griffin's exposure. So you get more of them. And let's say, in addition to you still want more leverage in that power forward spot. And so you don't have to play 80% Blake Griffin. Find someone that's close to him. Play Marvin Bagley or LaMarcus Aldridge. Yeah, there's a good one. He did horribly. LaMarcus Aldridge and Blake Griffin, I think, were the same price last night, I think. 6,100 on DraftKings. So maybe if you're playing 50 lineups, you don't want Blake Griffin in 40 of them. You don't mind him in 20 of them in those types of lineups where you're getting leverage at small forward. So you decide to say, well, I'm going to also play LaMarcus Aldridge. So now, instead of having 80% exposure to Blake, you have 40% because the other 40 is going to go to LaMarcus Aldridge. So you set the min to 40, and it'll start building those lineups with those small forwards, those power forwards in those lineups. Still probably has to fill a small forward spot. You'll probably still get plenty of Cam Johnson or Anthony Edwards. But that's how you would do it in an optimizer. It turns out the Memphis Grizzlies' next 3 games are postponed. Are they supposed to play tonight? The Grizzlies? No, okay. They're supposed to play tomorrow. But according to Shams, right now, the Grizzlies' next 3 games against Portland and Sacramento has been postponed. So look out for that tomorrow, I guess. Let's look through the YouTube chat. Kai Roach asks, do you think Squirrel Patrol was using a stacking rule then if he got all his lone Cavs in one lineup? Yeah, that's why I think that. Because none of them projected well. So the only conceivable way that he could have that low exposure and still get them all in the same lineup is that he set up some stacking rule, some group or something, in order for that to happen. That's what it looks like. Rob B asks, is RG going to put in a stack option for NBA lineups? Condition players can't be multiple, right? If I want to set a rule like if using Harden or Durant, run back with Sexton. Yeah, you could do that. You could do that with groups. You just have to create individual. You have to play a group for each conditional player. You wouldn't be able to do it at once. If using Harden, run back with, I mean, you could do that in groups. Just need a Harden group. You need a Harden conditional group and a Durant conditional group. You could still do that. Okay, going through YouTube chat. Ronald Coley. I'm scrolling. Where did that go? Where did that go? That was a good question. Okay. Ronald Coley asks or says, I struggle with putting a guy in my pool that doesn't project well. It seems like you need a guy or two like that in order to win a very large field tournament. Right. You're willing to sacrifice more projection median-wise. Because remember, they were talking about medians. All these players have ranges of outcomes. So like the median here, like today's slate, look at these ranges. Right? We could take a look at today's slate based on our 1003 projections. And let's go to someone that doesn't project well. Right? Dennis Schroeder. Okay? The grand scheme of things on this slate doesn't project well. 6,300. His median is 28. But his range is 13 to 40. So 10% of the time, he'll put up a decent, 25, 15% of the time, he'll put up 40. If he's going to be 2% owned, then you can play him in a lineup. You're sacrificing a lot of projection in your lineup. But that may be worth doing in a large field GPP based on the overall projection of the total lineup. Like we could look right here. I can optimize. So the top total right now, top median is 261. If I put in Dennis Schroeder, lock him in, 258. So the best lineup without Schroeder, with Schroeder, only gives up about 3 points in median. That ain't bad, right? You can still do it. So I'm playing a ball guy that doesn't project as well. Well, in the large field contest, you have to. You have to sacrifice projection for leverage. You're playing a 200-person contest, single entry type of thing, you don't have to. Or you could do it in one spot and then just jam the chalk 7 times in the other spots. You can do it in smaller contests, you can. But in large contests, you have to take risks. That's how you beat 80,000 entries. You have to. Right, the DFS tutor even says, Squirrel had to been sacrificing quite a bit off of the projected highest lineup. Definitely not a small field single entry play. That's right. Absolutely. That lineup would have been ridiculously over leveraged and under projected for a Thunderdome or something. He's not making that lineup for the Thunderdome. He's making it for the $8 excellent eights with 80,000 entries. That's what I always mean by you have to make the lineup for the contest. If you're making 2 safe lineups for the 80,000 entry contest, you're throwing your money away. Oh, you get a lot of bin cashes. Yeah, but you're bleeding your money away over time. And if you're building those type of lineups for 100-man contests, you're not winning them often enough, right? You're gonna win by 60 points when you do win, and you're gonna lose by 60 points like 95% of the other time. You don't have to get to that extent in smaller contests. Going through the YouTube chat, I also want to show off a new feature on Lineup HQ. Once I get through some of these questions, how do you build game stacks on Lineup HQ? I'll show you. This is a teaching session. We could teach a little. How do you build game stacks? Well, I mean, you could build groups that are based around games. So let's say, for instance, okay, we're gonna go here. We're gonna go to one game. Let's go to the Pels Utah game. Okay. Let's say I want to make sure to play, I want to play a 2+1 type of thing. Okay. So let's say in any lineup, the Jazz guys are projected better. So I'm gonna go with the Jazz guys. Gobert, Mitchell, Conley. Okay, so now I could use a player group. And I could go Gobert, Mitchell, Conley. Okay, and then let's say I want to don't play more than 2 of them in the same lineup. Okay, maybe I don't even want to play Mitchell and Conley in the same lineup. So maybe that's the better way to do it. So I'm going to create that just to create a little negative correlation group. Okay, but now I use a conditional player. So let's say in my Mitchell lineups, I want to make sure to have at least like Zion, Ingram, Adams, Ball, Bledsoe, right? Put in anyone you want. You could add even more. Hart if you want, right? Do something and say, like, in all my Mitchell lineups, I want at least 2 of 3 of them in my Mitchell lineups. We can even get rid of this just to make it less complicated. So if Mitchell's in a lineup, give me at least 2 Pelicans. And then let's say I do that with Conley also. Conley. And I just add all the guys back, right? Just add them all back. Zion and Ingram. Where's Ingram? Ingram and Hart and Bledsoe and Adams and Ball and whoever, right? And you do the same thing, right? Maybe you make another group. Okay, let's make another group with Gobert, right? If Gobert's in a lineup, then we put in Zion and Ingram and whoever, right? We're doing that. A little duplicative work. It would be nice if I could just like duplicate the same group over and over again, but we don't got that. So you just do it manually. So we got Bledsoe, Ball, Adams. We do that 2 to 3, right? So at any time one of these Jazz guys, these 3 Jazz guys shows up into a lineup, it's going to jam in 2 of these Pelicans. So let's do that. So now I'm going to make sure I get all those lineups. So like, let's just set 30, 30, 30. Right? And I'm going to build 20 lineups. Right? So where do we go? Well, we need more than that. 30, 30, 30. Yeah, here's a Gobert lineup. Gobert with Zion and Ball. There you go. Gobert with Zion and Bledsoe. Gobert with Adams and Bledsoe. Gobert with Gobert, Bojan, Mitchell, Ball, Williamson. There fit all 5 of them in there. Gobert with Harden, Ball, and Mitchell. And you even got a Gasol, James, Holiday. It's only a 3-game slate. Obviously, they're going to look a little bit more like stacks than a 3-game slate. There's only so many options. But that's what you'd be doing. So you could create game stats this way. In any combination you want. Maybe you don't want Adams and Gobert in the same lineup because they're centers against each other. So you create a group that doesn't create those. Boom, you're done. You don't have to worry about it. Maybe you don't want Ball and Bledsoe together. Even though, they're part of that other group, you just go Ball, Bledsoe, done. So they're not together either, right? Just like we did before with the Conley and Mitchell. Don't want Conley and Mitchell together. So now I have those groups. I'm going to build 20 lineups like that. I'm not going to see those combinations, right? So I'm going to go to Gobert again. Gobert, Zion, Ball. Gobert, Bledsoe, Zion with favors. Gobert, Zion, Bledsoe. Gobert, Conley, Zion, Ball. Right? Because Conley and Mitchell have to be separate. Conley favors Gobert. You probably don't play favors and Gobert together. So that would be another group that you'd use. So there you go. So you could build game stacks like this. And then set whatever the conditional players are. That's the thing that you could control with the exposures, with your min exposure. So if the conditional players don't project well and you don't give them a minimum exposure, it's not going to happen as often. If I just locked in Gobert or something like that, locked in Mitchell, like all my lineups would look like that. So that's how you would do that in lineup HQ to quote game stack. Going through the YouTube chat a little, scrolling through. I'm just scrolling. Let's see. Drew DP asks, besides opposing centers and players that come out for one another, what are other examples of negative correlation that you want to avoid when building lineups? As I always say, in NBA, negative correlation is weak. Typically, it's two guys on the court that are either efficient or overpriced that I typically don't want to play together. Two guys that drop like that. That's why I said like Mitchell and Conley. Obviously, it's a 3-game slate, so negative correlation doesn't matter as much because there's only so many options. But like yesterday with Harden, Durant, and Kyrie Irving, like at those prices, I would not play both of them in the same lineup on a normal size slate. On a 9-game slate like yesterday, you wouldn't at those prices, and you need on a 9-game slate probably those guys to hit like 65 points. It's going to be hard for like Harden to get 65 and Durant to get 65. Well, I mean, it's hard. It's easy if you have double overtime, but normally not in a double overtime. Like that won't happen. The same thing with like LeBron and AD. Like those types of scenarios where they're efficiently priced. If one of them is significantly underpriced, that's a different story. But if two guys that are efficiently priced on a large enough slate. Like on this 3-game slate, if you want to play Mitchell and Conley together, that's fine because it's only a 3-game slate. The weak negative correlation between the two at their prices, at efficient prices for their ceilings, you still need raw points on a 3-game slate. So, I mean, there's only so many options. On a 9-game slate, I wouldn't play them together. I typically don't play like Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson together at these prices. You tell me Ingram's 6,400 and Zion is 6,000, I'll play them together all day for their projected ceilings. But at these prices, they're efficient. They're whatever, right? I mean, smash percentage for Ingram at 8,500. He's overpriced. So it doesn't mean you don't play Ingram. You can play him. Just don't play him in Williamson probably together in the same lineup. On a normal size slate. On a short slate, you still need raw points. So the balance of raw points versus the weak negative correlation is not, maybe it's not even worth. Maybe you do play them together. Maybe it's fine in a certain lineup. So that's it. Those are pretty much the 3 conditions. Butthole Jenkins. If you're predicting a blowout on a 3-game slate, why would you fade that game completely and not consider some bench play for value? I mean, I talked about blowouts the other day with James. Like, don't predict a blowout. Just the projections are the projections. You never know what game's going to blow out. You never know which side's going to blow out. I mean, we see this in NBA. I think predicting blowouts I don't even bother. I'm telling you what I do. Maybe you do. Maybe you've had success in predicting. If you can predict blowouts, just bet on the game. Just bet on the game. You make more money than have to try to build a lineup that capitalizes on it. Jacob Calloway asks, I play a micro stakes 20 max with 5,000 entrants. Results DB doesn't have these types of contests. Would reviewing another 5K entry contest work by learning how much leverage is required, even if it's a single entry? Yeah. Or, I mean, you could study the normal 20 max. The normal 20 max or the $1 contests. You could also download the CSV and you could look at it in Excel. Like, Results DB is like the easy interface to do it. Before Results DB existed, I did this by downloading CSVs. And then you have to do a little bit of Excel manipulation to start looking at, people's lineups and stuff. So you can do it. Just download the CSV. You need a little bit of Excel skills in order to do it. But you're just looking for angles. Like the difference between a 5,000 entry contest and a 10,000 entry contest is not going to be that dramatic. You can't study those contests. You're just looking at the difference of ownership, if anything. But outside of the construction, just study the good players. That's it. Just look for the good players. Study what they're doing. Not who they pick, but how do they construct lineups. And you'll see. We see this on this show every day. One great player does this. Another great player does the complete opposite. They're both right. They both have the similar EV. Just one's going for one outcome and one's going for the other outcome. One's building cheap center, expensive guard. One building expensive center, cheap guard. But the lineups in and of themselves are constructed well for the contest that it's in. Let's see. Going through the YouTube chat. Yeah, I wanted to show you the new feature on Lineup HQ. Okay? New feature. Okay? It's historic projections. Okay? We used to have it that if you went back in time, a lot of people don't know you could go back in time on Lineup HQ. You could travel back and kill baby Hitler. No, you can't do that, but you can go back to previous slates. And like we could go back to yesterday's slate. Now, typically, it wouldn't show like the projections and stuff. It wouldn't show that. Well, now it shows the projected and the actual in fantasy points. So this is yesterday's slate, right? I even have some locks in here, right? Get rid of my cash lineup in here, right? So this is yesterday's slate. So I could sort by Durant, 77, Capella, 76, Trae Young, 66. This is our projection, our median projection, obviously, for it. So you could take a look. You could compare. But you could also, you could build based on this. So, I could press optimize. And, this was the best possible lineup yesterday. 442 on DraftKings. If you had Sexton, Nunn, Prince, Durant, Capella, Terrence Davis at 3K, Collins, and Ayton, that was the best possible lineup. We could go to Results DB. This should show it there. If it has, I don't know if it's been updated. Well, when Results DB gets updated, see, here's the best lineup. Yeah, usually it says optimal lineup. So when it gets updated, you'll see that lineup should be the one that's there. So you could take a look. You could go through it, and you could make practice. You could build based on this, right? I could go back to a previous slate, right? Take a look at my settings. And go, well, what happens if I would have done X, right? Like maybe you never would have played Terrence Davis. So you're like, no, there's no way that I would have ever played Terrence Davis. I'm going to get rid of that, right? Maybe you consider doing some type of Cleveland Durant stack. I mean, do these lineups make sense? Maybe you wouldn't have played Collins and Capella together. Right, so I'm going to go into player groups. I'm going to go Collins and Capella together. Collins and Capella not together. Okay? So I wouldn't have done that. I looked at this or something and then build 20 line. I mean, you could make experiments. And go, okay, I could have had this lineup. Trae Young, Jaden McDaniels, I probably wouldn't have had him. Right? You could just go back in time. And you could even put in your exposures or anything like that and see, can I build good lineups based on a past slate? So there's a lot of usefulness to this. I mean, not only in just seeing what's the best possible lineup you could make, but you could see a lot of times you'll see that a large field GPP winner, it's a little tilting, has a lineup that includes everyone that's in my player pool. You take a look at this and you go, I had all these guys in my 100 lineups, but just not all together because I only had X amount of that and X amount of this, and I just didn't build as many of these lines. You can go back and see, like, was there anything I could have done to got this lineup, or to get the winning lineup? Not even the optimal. I mean, look at what we're talking about. The winner, Squirrel Patrol, right? Put up 388.75 and won. The top optimal, 442. Well, I mean, that's excluding my player groups and my player pool, putting Terrence Davis again. 442. Like, not even close. I mean, we're talking about what? 50, 54 points or so off? It's very hard to make the absolute optimal. Because who played Terrence Davis yesterday? No one. Right? And the whole combination like this. Very hard. So you don't need to get 442. But at least now you could go back in time. You go back to any slate. We could go back right now. I mean, to whatever slate. I won, I think on the 5th, I won a bunch. Right? I go back to 5th. I think the Tuesday the 5th is the one that. Which slate is this? Is this a bunch? I don't know. I don't remember. You can go back to this slate. Now, this is a Jokic slate. Jokic, LeBron, Kyrie. Now you can take a look at this. Right, Russell did well. Yeah, I think this is the slate. I won a bunch of money. I won a couple $1,000 on. You go here. You can take a look what the optimal is. Right, this is where yeah, this is the one where Kawhi was in and George got scratched or something. Right, yeah. So you go in and you could play around with it. Build lineups based on the actual fantasy points. Right? You could even be like right here with this selector up here. I don't know if you can see it on the screen. I can't scroll all the way down. Oh, I'm trying to. Okay, trying to get over there. You could build with the fantasy points historically or the projected ones. So I can go to projected and build based on that. It's not going to affect the lineup preview. But I could build, like, let's say I build 20 lineups. This is based on the projection for that day. So here you go. This would have been like the optimal for that day. Like the median optimal. But then I could also go to fantasy points, and that will give me the actual. So the best 20 lineups you could possibly make, 413. Just another feature of lineup HQ that you could fool around with. You can go back in time. You can go back in past. You could do the lineup HQ review. Right? We got results DB. That's free. And we also got lineup HQ review. Is that what we're going to call it? HQ review? It's something like that. But you could go on all the sports. Whatever sports are available, you'll see the projection. You'll see the actual. What I want them to add is the ownership also, the actual ownership, because then you don't get to have that separate thing of like, well, it still has ownership here. So I think that is saved. Was Jokic 28%? We could say let's go to yesterday. I'm finding this out also. This got released yesterday. Sometimes they don't even tell me. So I'm gonna go through. Let me go to yesterday's slate. Let's see if the ownership is this the pwn or is this the actual? The projected or the actual? So if we build 20 lineups based on yesterday, Taurean Prince, Kevin Durant was 1.9. So is he 1.9? Well, I don't know what. See, now when it says ownership, we don't know what contest we're dealing with. So yeah, that's probably projected ownership. So yeah, so this would be what we projected them to be owned, I believe. Capella 28.3. Yeah, because the ownership would have to depend on the contest. So yeah, so there's no way to hard code in what contest that we're playing. So this would be the projected ownership. So at least you could still get a sense, even though it's not going to be, like completely accurate because it's projected. You could then try to build lineups like the best optimal right now, 442 with the 98% ownership, 98-point ownership sum. 85 ownership sum. But I mean, these are all like lineups that, you could build 20 lineups that are going to be way above the winning lineup of 388 because it contains like Terrence Davis. Like no one played this guy. Like no one played Taurean Prince. Like no one. Like these are barely owned players. So maybe you X them out, right? You look at Squirrel Patrol's lineup and you go like, who does no one have? You start Xing all those guys out, and then you start like building and say, what could I have done yesterday to get a close enough lineup? I had to be. It's one of those things where it's like I had about the right pieces, just not in the right combination. And then you could practice. You could practice lineup builds in lineup HQ. You don't have to practice on today's slate of 3 games. Maybe you have a Friday off or something. You have some time off, and it may be a 2-game slate that night. And you're like, you know what? I really want to learn, a little bit more about lineup HQ and how to make multi-entry builds. But on a 2-game slate, I mean, that's kind of a skill in and of itself on a 2-game slate. So you go back in time. You go, I'm going to go back to a 11-game slate and experiment and say, well, these are the lineups that I want to build. Like hand build a couple of lineups. Like you look through and you go, okay, this is the lineup that I want, and then try to build them using the settings. And say, I want to build these types of lineups and see what happens. And you can use the actual points, the actual points, the projected points, whatever you want, and the projected ownership there, and build lineups that are leveraged, correlated, projected well, whatever. So I think it's useful. Lineup HQ review. You could sign up for premium. You get that, obviously. Click on the link in the description below, rotogrinders.com/premium. And they're adding stuff all the time. I'm in the RotoGrinders Slack. They bounce ideas off of me every so often. And this would be useful. Historic projections, historic everything. Double check. A lot of people ask, oh, what was so-and-so's projection yesterday? Well, now you can check what the final projection was. So a little accountability also, right? The premium NBA projections team, they don't mind, right? You do these historic projections and you're able to go back in time, and instead of saving them, it's like it's saved for you. They're like, well, they're going to get, if you have a good projection for a guy and they don't do well, like people are going to know about it in the past. They don't mind. Our projections team is one of the best in the business. Andy Means, Tuttle, Noto, SBK, Jamino, Allen, Bob Reeves. Probably too much. There's probably Jamino. There's everyone in there. I don't know who's left in there. They're one of the best in the business. So they don't mind the accountability. I don't either. That's why I've been using the premium projections at RotoGrinders before I even worked here. So I eat my own dog food. That's a saying. I don't actually eat dog food. I drink apple juice. If you're going to eat dog food, at least wash it down with apple juice. Okay, let's get a question or two before we get out of here for today. Let's see. JJ says, Sup Blender just got in. Thank you for all this transparency, man. Seriously, hit the like button, everyone, for real. Yeah. I try to keep it real here. I'm real and transparent. I show you my actual results. I show you exactly what I do. And if you can't do it, that's your problem. Really, that's what it comes down to. I still think I can do it better than you. Let's see. DJ A Dog 3K, do you tweak your optimizers? Do I tweak my optimizers when you're building for cash games, or you just run the optimal and play the best lineup for cash? Yeah. I try to put as little thought into cash. This is what I'm doing for this season. That's why I'm tracking it. Essentially, whatever the projections tell me is the best median lineup, that's what I play. Is it the best cash lineup? No. In the past, I would build better. I would build what I believe is a better floor-ceiling combination lineup. Because you have to remember, the medians are just medians. It does the optimizer to solve that problem, it doesn't take into account the standard deviation of the players. So you may have a very unbalanced lineup. A high median, but you may have 4 guys in there that they could put up 3, they could put up 30. Is that great for cash games? Probably not. But their medians all look the same to the optimizer. So there may be a lineup, the 6th best, the 6th highest lineup may actually be a better cash lineup. But do I want to spend the time to determine that? This season I'm deciding not to. I'm just saying whatever the projections team tells me and whatever the math comes out to, that's the lineup that I play. And doing well in FanDuel. So that's what I do. Is it something that I suggest you do? No, not necessarily. But I'm treating it, that's why I'm doing it transparently. I'm treating it like a stock investment. So I'm just putting it in, making the swaps when needed, right? In later games when news comes out. And then seeing my results at the end of the season. So there'll be ups and downs, right? We take a look at the chart, just like a stock. There'll be ups, there'll be downs. You have a diversified portfolio as possible, multiple sites, head-to-heads, double ups, triple ups, everything. Spread it out to reduce that variance, and then see what happens at the end of the season. What's the worst thing that happens? I lose 20,000? I'm probably not even going to do that. That's probably not even the worst. So it's like I'm going to play 10% of whatever that number is, and just whatever happens, happens. That's what I'm doing. Do I suggest you do that? Not necessarily. Let's see. Logan Brantley asks, hey, Blender, when you go back and rerun lineups, how can you see what they actually scored? It's in there. I just showed you. If you go back in time, like today's the 21st. So you see right here in lineup HQ, we have these are historic points and projections. It's in there for you already. So I could go back to any slate. I could go back to the Tuesday the 19th. We had that what that was a 2-game slate. So I'm going to go back to the 19th. And here you go. There's this 2-game slate with the 2 blowouts. Here's the fantasy point. The actual Jokic put up 56. Gobert put up 46. Zion put up 43. It's in there. That's how you see it. Roby put up 32. And you could see what they were projected median-wise. Right? So you could go to any slate. I'm not sure if they have NFL done, but probably. You could take a look at that, maybe. You go to any slate. I don't know if this is how far back this goes. We'll go back. Okay, it goes back to October right now for NBA. All right, we go back to, let's see, NFL. Let's go to NFL. Just checking. Does this work for NFL also? So go to NFL. We go back to, Sunday, the December 13th or whatever. Obviously, there were games on a Sunday. Go back to some random Sunday in December. Wait for it to load. Yep, here we go. The Derrick Henry week, right? Henry, Taylor, Sanders. So yeah, so even football. So you could do this. Lineup HQ review. Sign up for premium. Get $10 off your first month of just NBA. It could be single sport. It could be the whole combo package. Whatever you'd like. Results DB is free though. So you could always go through rotogrinders.com/resultsdb for that. But I did want to spend some time to show off. And maybe you could find other uses of this, right? You could find other uses. Can you download these? I don't think you can. Can you? Can I click that? No, I guess not. Right. I'm just clicking around myself. Can I use projection? Can I? No, I can't. I can't download it. Okay. That would be nice. Or you just go through and just download all of it. So check that out if you're a premium member. If you're not, sign up. I'm always in the RotoGrinders Discord. If you're there, ask me whatever you want or send me questions. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. As always, I have my 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com that essentially teaches you the entire game theory of DFS. So tonight we got Dean and Grant or Kirkwood. I think Chris Kirkwood's on. I think on Grinders Live tonight. Then we got Rolf and Meansy premium crunch time, and I'll be back tomorrow for Friday. Tomorrow we got a real slate. Can they schedule these games out better? We had 10 games yesterday that turned into 9, then 3 games tonight, and tomorrow is like 13. But it's probably not going to be 13. It's going to end up being an 8-game slate. They're going to cancel half of them, or who knows? Who knows what happens tonight? Right? What's going on tonight? Then they may cancel a game. 3 guys may be out. Who knows? Whatever you imagine building lineups before the 5:30 Eastern injury report. There's no point. I say this every day, right? So that's why people come in. New people come and ask me, "Oh, what are we doing today?" It's like, I don't even know if we're going to survive to the end of the day today. So I have no idea who's going to be in or out or anything. So tune into Grinders Live. Tune into Crunch Time for that. And until tomorrow, I'm Jordan Cooper, aka blenderhd, blenderhd on Twitter. And that has been the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders.com.